now joined on the line by the Ministry of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security Executive Director, Etienne Maritz. Good afternoon, Mr. Maritz, and thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me on the program.
First things first, take us through the measures the ministry has put in place as part of the state of emergency and lockdown.
Okay, we have released those measures as part of a press release, and we have also requested that all the regional officers will display it through a notice to the members of the public. But in essence, first of all, I think immigration services are still open, but at a reduced scale. It means there would be less immigration officers at those border posts that have been closed. All civil registration services are suspended, except for birth registration of newborn babies, and then also the registration of deaths that are now occurring. We also, in relation to the refugee management, we have also suspended services, except those that are involved in the facilitation of movement out of the city refugee settlement for emergencies, such as funerals of close family members, medical care, and accessing banking services.
Now, Mr. Maritz, there have been and may still be cases coming of Namibians denied entry into the country and subjected to a mandatory quarantine. Who is to pay for the cost of that specific exercise?
First of all, we at the Ministry of Home Affairs, we are not aware of any Namibians that have been denied entry into Namibia. Mm-hmm. I think if you are aware of instances of this nature, then we must be notified immediately, and then we can deal with it on a case-to-case basis. Mm-hmm. As per the decision of Cabinet, and also as set out in the regulation, made pursuant to the proclamation of the state of emergency, all Namibians are welcome back home. But of course, they will be subjected to the mandatory quarantine. The quarantine is handled by the Ministry of Health and Social Services. So in terms of the cost, I think it's best to follow up with that ministry.
So as it stands at the moment, what is the situation at the borders? Have there been any instances of travelers coming in without the necessary documentation or trying to enter the country based on some sort of prior approval?
There were some instances, but in those cases, the traveler will be returned. I think even in a state of emergency, people must travel with the necessary documentation. You need to have your passport with you. Now, with the declaration of the state of emergency, the visas and the permits issued earlier are all suspended. So travelers may not rely on a previously issued employment permit or a tourist visa to enter the country. And maybe those are the cases that have been referred back to their country.
Now, you mentioned earlier with regards to emergency cases, because you will get certain cases where someone might have to travel because of health reasons or for something or like. How can people acquire travel certificates for those specific emergency cases?
First of all, there should not be any cases where people use travel certificates. Our offices are still open to issue passports in emergency cases, so it is possible to apply for an emergency passport and it will be issued. And then for Namibians and permanent resident holders seeking to depart from Namibia, of course they need to obtain permission, and there's a form that they need to complete, and we at the Ministry of Home Affairs or Health and Social Services will then approve that, and then they can continue. I just want to emphasize that non-essential travel will definitely not be allowed.
Fully understood. How many of Namibia's borders are presently closed, just for clarity?
I would like to focus rather on those open, because all of our borders are closed with the exception of the following: Oshikango, Katima Mulilo, Transkalari, Noord-Oever, Walvisbaai Harbour, Arjan's Plain, And then, of course, the two airports, Usia Kutako International Airport and Walvis Bay Airport. And all of these borders are open for commercial goods and cargoes. And therefore, any Namibian or permanent resident holder that show up at any of these ports of entry would be allowed in. We also want to advise Namibians returning to actually make use of the airports. You may be coming at one of the borders, and the problem might not be on the Namibian side. I know that South Africa have closed its borders, so it is not even possible for you to come to Namibia because they won't allow you through. So if you make use of the ports of entry that I have mentioned, there shouldn't be any problems.
Now, Mr. Maritz, lastly, just before we let you go, just for those borders that are open, are our borders capacitated in terms of screening equipment and, of course, then human capacity?
Of course, screening is being handled by the Ministry of Health and Social Services, and I think they would be in a better position to speak to the availability of equipment. In terms of human resources, from our side, Ministry of Home Affairs, immigration officers are on duty, and they are manning all the border posts, and they are ensuring the smooth entry and exit of people, and then most importantly, the cargo that is coming in and out of our country.
Well, Mr. Maritz, thank you so much once again for making the time to join us.
Thank you very much for having me on the program, and a good day to you and the listeners.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, there you have it. That was the Ministry of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security Executive Director, Etienne Maritz, just talking to us and giving us a brief outline on what the current measures that have been put in place specifically by the Ministry of Home Affairs and Immigration and Safety and Security, specifically during this lockdown and, of course, then the state of emergency period.